Meeting called to order on Wednesday, January 29th, 2020, at 7 o'clock. First thing we're going to do is going to do the Pledge of Allegiance, so if anybody could stand up, that'd be great.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And please stay standing for 1 minute. Peter's going to do the prayer.
Just like to remind everyone that might have a hat on, if they please remove it. Lord, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen.
Amen.
Peter Cassidy?
Here.
Amy Ortiz? Here. Alan Horrick?
Here.
Richard Banks?
Here.
Michael McPhillips?
Here.
There is a quorum on record.
And before we get started, if anybody has their phones, turn them off or put them on silent. Okay. Paula, Amy's going to be sitting in for Justin, just as kind of a housekeeping matter. Item number 6, the minutes of December 4th, 2019, and the January 8th, 2020 zoning board meeting. Do we have any commentaries, questions, wants to changes, anything of that nature?
Hearing none, I move that we accept the minutes.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, now we can move on to the good stuff, okay? Petition, number 7, petition number 2020-1. Applicant, J.O. or John Silva. Owner, J.O. John Silva, premises 4 Market Street. Plat 40, lots 76 and 77. Zone NDCB/B. Proposed use, the applicant is seeking a special use permit for a 2-family dwelling in a permitted use in the Natick Design Control District, which is 5.13.2. Existing structure, proposed use is consistent with the neighborhood and doctrine of appropriateness of the zoning ordinance of the town of West Warwick as amended.
Mr. Chairman, I have marked as exhibits, number 1, the application, number 2, the zoning certificate, number 3, the tax collector report, number 4, the abutters list, number 5, the radius map, number 6, the zoning plan dated July 28th, 2019, and number 7, the green cards.
Great, the green cards, that's great. Fire away, sir.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and board members. For the record, Attorney John Pagzarini, Lapazera, Lapacina, 117 Metro Center Boulevard, Warwick. This is an odd creature in your zoning ordinance, and talking to the town planner, the standards for an overlay are interesting at best. Predominantly, most of the issues of your special use permit are not really applicable, but I'll just run through them. 10.2.11, compatible with neighboring land use. Immediately surrounding 4 Market Street, across the street we have a 6-unit dwelling. On the corner of Providence Street, there's a multi-family, and then there's a mixed-use property. Directly behind us is a commercial printing operation, and across the street is a nail salon. So we feel as though this is an old library, and we're asking for its use to be a 2-family, which is permissive in the overlay district. We don't believe that having 2 families on this property is going to create any type of nuisance. It's not going to hinder the future development. It definitely conforms with the zoning ordinance, and by definition, it's under the consistency doctrine. Since it's a special use, it's consistent with your comprehensive plan. The overlay district does permit a special use permit. It sort of waives out all of the side yards and setbacks and other dimensions in one argument. It's an existing building. We plan on building within the existing footprint, and we seek permission to, subject to the fire marshal's inspection and building official, putting 2 residential dwelling units in the existing structure. And that's it, sir.
I take a little offense at what he said. It's an old library. It was a library when I was a kid, and probably when Peter was a kid.
Thanks a lot.
I rephrase, it's an ancient library.
Wasn't a library when I was.
That's not gonna get you anywhere. Antiquated.
I might have gone there once or twice.
Any questions? Do we have any comment from the legal counsel prior to, any questions
No,
with your comments on this matter?
no, I mean, the question of the parking, but as my brother has said, going back to when it was a library, and I think that knowing that area, it does fit with the area. But my only question that I raised in my comments is the parking area, because it doesn't show on the plans.
That building predates zoning?
Well predates zoning.
Excuse me.
I was afraid of
Are you
that.
saying it doesn't show on the plans?
The plan I had, I
I
didn't.
have 5 different pieces of the same plan, and it shows on my plan.
1, 2, 3, and 4.
Shows 4 parking places, which in fact is the minimum parking that would be required for that property.
My question was regarding the setbacks.
Setback 10 feet. It's not 10 feet.
Not parking. Yeah, okay.
But
Question for-
that can be waived by the zoning board.
Question to the legal
Fire away.
counsel.
Go ahead.
Was it ever, to your knowledge, a single-family unit? Did a single family lived there before the library? That predates me.
I
don't know.
can't say that. I think its original intent was as a library. The zoning certificate defines it as a vacant old library, I believe. I don't have, I know the plan shows single-family dwelling.
Yeah,
I don't have anything to support that.
I know of nothing other than it had been a library, and then it was vacant, and I know of nothing having gone in there.
no, I was actually thinking before the library.
Oh, no. I'm going, in the early 50s, it was a library.
I know that. Before the library.
I don't remember before 1954.
I definitely don't, so I'm gonna let you guys continue.
What are you looking at for square footage for each? It's gonna be a two-family, right?
That's correct.
How many, what are you looking at for square footage for
I
each?
believe it's 1656 per floor.
So you're proposing it as
1656 per floor,
per floor, 2 floors?
2 floors.
That's
Up and down, correct? Yeah, one per floor.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have no other questions.
Okay, I'll pick up your slack then. What's your egress and your ingress in there?
They-
It's pretty,
They exist, but understanding that it'll have to meet whatever the fire marshal says, so no problem with that as a condition.
That is a requirement of the building and fire marshal, that even if you grant it and they don't meet it, they can't go anywhere. So it's really, it's not a matter for the zoning board, it's, you can grant it, and if they don't meet it, they don't get it.
okay. So we'd have to okay the setback being less than 10 feet.
Much of that area, speaking firsthand, including property that I own there, is legal non-conforming. When that property was built, there was no rules and regs, there was no zoning, no planning, no
Wild, Wild
ordinances,
West.
no nothing. Good use of the property.
You have to make a motion for the setback. That can be less than 10 feet. Yeah. We'd have to authorize that first before we go any- before we go any further.
If the board is going to make a motion, I would suggest that the motion be to approve the application as requested and to waive any setback requirement for parking spaces.
Can you guys talk into the mics? There's a key here in the back.
Okay.
All right, I'll make a
Just
motion.
for my own edification, is it on here somewhere that it doesn't make setbacks? Because I don't-
Yes, under the legal, under legal counsel comments.
Oh, yeah? I don't know. Okay,
It's in the agenda.
It was unclear to me, so I motion that the board waive it, resolves the issue.
Okay. That's fine. Do you have any questions?
I don't.
Alan?
No questions.
Amy? Pete, you're all done with your questions then, right?
Done?
You got a line of questions, okay.
No, I'm just,
You wanna go ahead? No, what you normally do. Go ahead.
I move that we close public session.
I have a second.
Second?
Discussion?
Call it.
No? Okay. With the stipulations?
Yeah, go ahead. No, just to close the public session, that's all.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do we have public comment?
Are there any commenters out there about this petition?
Doesn't
Just
look
ask
like
no.
it.
Make a motion that we, this is the application for special use permit to convert a single-family dwelling unit into a two-family dwelling unit. Applicant and owner J.O. Silva, tax assessors plat 40, lot 76 and 77 in zone BDCB, BDCDB. I make a motion we approve a special use permit, find that the proposed use is compatible with neighboring land uses, will not create a nuisance in the neighborhood, it will not hinder future development of the town, it will conform to all applicable sections of the zoning ordinance, and it is in conformance with the purpose and intent of the comprehensive plan. Relief granted under section 5.13.2. I also stipulate that any parking setbacks are waived for this application. I make a motion to approve.
Second?
Peter Kelsey,
Yes.
Amy Ortiz. Yes. Don Hart,
Yes.
Richard Banks,
Yes.
and Michael McDowell.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good luck. Motion passes. Okay, petition number 2020-2. Applicant Atlantic Capital Real Estate, Inc. Owner Tri-Town Construction Company, Inc. Premises is terminus of Nottingham Drive in Misty Oaks Court. Plat, Lot 21, Lot 31, zoned R10. The proposed use for this is seeking a special use permit to construct 12 condominium buildings, each with 2 condominium units for a total of 24 units, multifamily, under section 5.3, Table of Use Regulations, A.3, dwelling multiple family in R10 zone allowed with a special use permit of the zoning ordinance of the town of West Warwick as amended.
Mr. Chairman? I have marked as exhibits, number 1, the application, number 2, the radius map, number 3, the abutters list, number 4, the site plan, number 5, the zoning certificate, number 6, the tax collector's report, number 7, the applicant's report, number 8, the green cards, and in addition, as previously requested by the zoning board, I have attached to my report to you a copy of the technical review committee report, which is not an exhibit because it's a part of the planning board and another committee, but I've given it to the zoning board as you have previously requested.
Go ahead, Joe.
Thank you.
You're ready.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, honorable members of the West Warwick zoning board. For the record, Attorney K. Joseph Chikachi. With me tonight is a bevy of experts.
Is this better? Is Beth better? Okay, I'll start again. I want to make sure everybody hears me. Thank you for that, by the way. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, honorable members of the West Warwick Zoning Board. For the record, Attorney K. Joseph Shikachi, representing the applicant. Tonight with me is my co-counsel and good friend, John Mancini. I have a bevy of experts which I will introduce. I'm only planning on calling two, but I have everyone here in case the neighbors have any questions or in case the board has any questions, and I'll introduce them. Some housekeeping matters. I want to make sure that record indicates that I did in fact give your clerk the return receipt, green cards from the certified mailing.
David made it part of the exhibits.
Thank you. I want to make sure that the planning department's, or excuse me, planning board's recommendation for approval was also part of the record.
That was submitted.
Okay, thank you. I have a drawing, a rendering by Dupree Engineering that I would like to introduce as the next exhibit, and I'll give to your solicitor. And this is a copy, and it's color-coded green, and I will explain to you what the green are, and I have copies for every member of the board.
Is that a new thing, Joe?
This is new. It's a new exhibit.
What is it, Joey?
It's an exhibit of, it's a site plan,
Site plan.
and it's an exhibit showing highlighted areas of the neighbors who have, I have a petition, which I'll introduce as part of that in 1 minute, which have all signed that they have no objection to this petition.
Satisfactory to mark it as Dupree site plan?
Certainly, that's fine.
Exhibit 9, Dupree site plan.
And part of that is a signed letter of the neighbors who have no objection. And you'll see from the plan that Mr. DeFiore will pass around on what is in green, for the most part, not all, but a very high majority of every one of the abutting landowners have no objection to this petition. And I will explain to you why that we are providing a buffer of land to each of those landowners. Some of them said they had no objection. They willingly signed the petition. Others said they had no objection, but they didn't want to sign anything. And I can understand that. Mr. DeFiore, this is part of that exhibit as well.
Same part of the same exhibit?
Thank you.
The petition for project support, I'll mark it as a separate number 10.
Okay.
So when was this done?
That plan,
Recently.
when was that plan, Chuck, completed?
The date on
It
it
was- it was-
is March 12, 2019.
Would've been nice to have it before, just as I'm not a record keeper, would've been nice
Sure.
to have it prior to.
So you actually do, and I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman, you already have it. What's new about it is those were the colors in green are new. And when I say new, those are the neighbors that we spoke to as recently as this weekend who indicated in favor. But the plan that you're seeing tonight, that's been advertised, that the neighbors have seen, that the plan that the planning board has approved has not changed. They originally filed as part of the application. There are no changes to that plan. What has changed is just that we have indicated with a color coding the list of neighbors who have no objection with part of the planning board record, but what's the color coding of the ones who are in favor of the project. With me tonight, I have Mr. Ed Pimento, Mr. Paul Bannon, and Ed Pimento will be used as a land use expert. Mr. Paul Bannon, who is traffic expert. I have with me also Peter Scotti as a real estate expert. I have with me Dupree Engineering, Mr. Demers, to answer any technical questions regarding drainage or anything else that the board may want to know. I have also with me is Kevin Alverson, the landscape architect, and finally, Joe Lombardo. Mr. Pimento has submitted his report previous to this. Mr. Lombardo will testify that the net positive fiscal impact from this project is to the positive to the town of about $150,000 annually in new tax revenue. And that nets out any burden on the taxpayers in terms of snow removal, garbage removal, an estimate, but an accurate estimate nevertheless, of any kids that potentially be in the school-age children. As you know, what we're proposing are 24 two-unit apartments. When I say two-unit, 24 total units, 12 buildings of 2 units each, of 55 and older condominiums on this property. We believe this is a good use of this property. We believe that it was consistent with the town's comprehensive use plan and future land use map. And we believe that this in no way, shape, or form will devalue any of the neighboring property values. And I'll let Mr. Bannon speak to that, but that the traffic level of service will not change, that there will be new cars, because this is vacant land, and there will be more traffic than's there today, no question, but it could be substantially more, and Mr. Bannon will testify, if there were single-family homes, because the single-family homes will generate more school children, and they will generate more trip generations in and out of the development and on the road. Typically, with these types of developments, the people who live here are empty nesters, or they have a second home in a warm weather climate, and they go away as snowbirds for the winter. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, or if not, I will certainly call Mr. Bannon and have him give a very brief summary on traffic and answer any questions you have, and also make him available for recall for you or any of the neighbors as well.
Are you requesting he be as an expert?
Yes, I'm going to offer him as an expert. He's appeared before this board and many other boards throughout the state as a traffic expert.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Bannon has appeared before this board many, many times, and he's qualified as an expert in many situations where I've been involved. I would suggest the board accept him as an expert. Take a motion to do so.
Make a motion to accept.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very
Go
much.
ahead, Mr. Bannon.
For the record, Paul Bannon, B-A-N-N-O-N. We were retained to conduct a traffic impact assessment for this project. Is part of that effort. We met with the site engineer to look at the proposed access and circulation to ensure that safe access and egress to the property can be provided. We visited the site different times of the day, days of the week, to inventory the existing roadway network, traffic volumes, site distances, traffic control within the neighborhood, and access to the neighborhood.
What times were you there?
All times of the day. Peak hours, morning, evening, off-peak during the day. I have several projects that I have over the last year or so, because we've been working on this project, and I'm there regularly. We inventoried the project for existing land use and roadway conditions. We obtained traffic data at the main study intersection of Greenbush with Nottingham, which is the main collector road within the neighborhood, and which we would link to. We obtained accident data from the local police department to determine if there were any safety issues within the neighborhood or along the major servicing roadways. We then developed a trip estimate for this type of land use and the number of units, and then we added that traffic onto the existing traffic volumes and assess the existing and both future conditions at the main study intersection. The results found that the intersection of Greenbush with Nottingham operates efficiently today and will in the future with no degradation in operations. We had made a couple recommendations within the neighborhood relative to control of intersections, specifically at Crossbow Lane and Maid Marian, where Nottingham intersects those two roadways. Presently, they're at skewed angles, and the control is odd in that one was a two-way stop at a three-way intersection, and one had no control, yield control, and stop control.
Mr. Chairman, if I might interrupt. I recently presented to the town council, and they recently passed. I want to say that the yield sign at that intersection will be replaced by a stop sign. I think that's the ordinance I prepared.
Yes, and they at Maid Marian, I had recommended they make it an all-way stop. They added that third stop sign, so it is an all-way stop. Residents had complained through our neighborhood outreach and through the planning board, people speeding through the neighborhood. So, these measures would help control the intersections, create some stopping within, and hopefully slow some of the traffic down. Any questions?
You're not proposing a red light or anything like that?
No, no. The traffic
Get
is,
that out there.
no, the traffic is very light, and, typically you'll have one car on Nottingham waiting to turn onto Greenbush. It's more of a rolling stop because they don't have
Bad
to.
word, rolling stop.
They don't have to pretty much wait for traffic on the main road.
For the zoning board, those Maid Marian and the Nottingham crossbow, they were requested by Councilman D'Amico and presented to the council.
Makes sense.
No. And I just wanted to add, as Mr. Shikarchi had indicated, relative to trip generation and the number of units, just so you have an understanding on the additional traffic during what we analyze as the peak hours, the worst conditions, the morning peak,
7 to 9.
7 to 9 and 4
4
to
to
6. You've heard this before.
Couple of times.
But during that morning period, with the number of units, we would estimate a total of 11 trips. That would be 3 entering and 8 exiting. And during the evening peak hour, it'd be 14 total trips, 9 entering and 5 exiting. So as you can see, the size of development, the type of development results in very low volumes of traffic.
Does that, I'm just curious, does that include deliveries?
Yes, it's,
Include-
yes. Typically a single-family development versus a condominium development, the single-family is twice the amount of traffic than a condominium per unit.
Pete,
Quite a few names on here.
can I see that document though for a second?
Yeah, it's quite a few names on here.
If you're all done with Mr. Bannon, I'll put Mr. Pimento on very briefly.
I have a question for you. You, Mr. Sakaki, who put this together? Who put this document together?
My client did.
Mr. Kutu's not the chairman of the zoning board, just a record-keeping thing.
Okay. Well, we apologize for that.
Okay.
Just
Just
for
a-
clarification.
Just for clarification on that.
There's gonna be a stop sign on Nottingham going in the northerly direction at the intersection of Crossbow.
Yes. It'll be a three-way stop, an all-way stop.
It's gonna be a three-way stop, because Nottingham is the street that you're continuing on.
Correct.
If there wouldn't be a stop sign, it would be on the Nottingham side.
My recollection,
Normally, I'm
My-
saying normally. In this particular case, going for a abundance of caution, I think it's a good idea to have both sides.
It's because they're skewed, people look, and the control, that which way is the through road. So
It doesn't go straight.
So,
Take a right.
correct.
is that the intersection where there was a yield sign?
There was a yield, a stop, and no control.
My recollection, Mr. Calci, is that the request from Councilman D'Amico was to replace the yield sign. I don't know what else was there.
The yield sign was on the northbound, like the veering left from Crossbow.
But that's
onto-
all the ordinance. did.
Nottingham comes up and then veers left, and Crossbow comes in. Crossbow was yield.
That's correct.
Abundance of caution.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
You're good for now, sir.
Could I call Mr. Edward Pimento, and offer him as an expert in the area of land use? And he has testified before this board and several other boards in the state as a land use expert.
I would recommend,
He's
yes,
testified before us before?
yes,
Okay.
here in planning and everywhere else.
All 39 cities and towns, yeah.
He's ready.
I would motion
Oh.
to
Okay.
approve him as an expert.
I'll make a motion, we accept accept the witness as an expert.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You guys have it, go ahead.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do. So for the record, the name's Edward Pimentel, that's P as in Paul, Imentel. So for purposes of this development, I read thoroughly your comprehensive plan, cover to cover. Yep. I do that for all
God bless you.
I do that for all my developments, and I submitted the report well ahead of this meeting, and you'll see all of the goals and objectives that were excerpted from it. So, but the big thing here was, what we're trying to accomplish is, instead of doing a conventional subdivision, and Dupree did a yield plan for you, which would consume all of the land resources, and if you look at the density, it would be approximately 20 house lots versus 24 units. But here, we've congested, or condensed, I should say, the development to try to preserve that vast forested area and to protect the land. So your comp plan and your zoning regs say two things: where multifamily should go, but in light of the multifamily, they also prescribe an open space density requirement. So it's 5,000 per unit and 2,500. We're way below the 5,000 requirement. It would be 64 units based on the suitable acreage. We're doing 24. And the vast majority of the land resources is going to be preserved rather than coming in there and just clear cutting and doing a conventional. This is what I call good planning. That's why these kind of projects are easy for me to testify to, because these are good planning. Having said that, it's in the report. We meet all the requisite standards for the granting of the special use permit. We're compatible from a density perspective. In fact, we're far less dense. And we're consistent with your comp plan, if you have any questions.
Yes.
Fire away, Pete.
The entire project, the entire Lot 31 is just more above 21 acres, what I see here.
Correct.
There's probably 4 or 5 references for wetlands on one of your maps. Could you tell us in a close proximity how many acres are part of that wetland, or the total amount
Oh,
of wetland in the 21 acres?
Let me speak to just the land use aspect of it, because the project engineer can speak
You
to,
have
I think.
the land mass that's
But,
usable, you can subtract it.
right, that's what, so in my report, right, so it's approximately 21.79 acres is the total site.
Yeah,
Of that, approximately 11.66 is upland area outside any constraints, wetlands, wetland buffers, et
How
cetera,
much was that?
11.66. So when we did our density analysis, I do it both ways, but I concentrate, I play with very conservative numbers. I base it purely on the upland area acreage, on the upland acreage. So when you're looking at the 11.5 acres, at the 5,000 square foot requirement,
The buildable part.
the buildable,
Buildable is up.
There we go.
yeah, the buildable, sorry, the developable acreage. No constraints. You're looking at, your regulations would allow a density of 55 to 56 units, literally. If you apply the density requirement for the open space at 7,500, it would still be in the 40-something square foot range. We're looking at 24 units. So we've minimized this density down considerably.
if I may, and I agree with what you're saying, about how much of that upland is part of the condominium section versus the west side of the property, the north and west side of the property?
That number I'd have to refer to the project engineer.
I can call up Mr. Demers and he can give you that answer.
Cannot hear you. Are you all mic? We're not getting any of this.
Could you state your name and please?
My name is Kevin Demers from Dupree Engineering, 2 Stafford Court in Cranston.
Joe, I can't make a recommendation. I've never experienced Mr. Demers, so.
So, Mr. Demers, are you a licensed engineer in the state of Rhode Island?
Yes, I am.
Have you appeared before other planning boards and zoning boards throughout this state of Rhode Island?
Yes, I've appeared throughout planning and zoning boards throughout the state.
And Mr. Demers, what is your professional engineering license in the state of Rhode Island, please?
It's number 8557.
And I have a bunch of resumes in my hand. Is this your resume?
Yes, it is.
And do they accurately reflect your professional experience?
Yes.
Thank you. I would offer Mr. Demers resume as an exhibit, and then I would offer Mr. Demers as an expert.
I will mark that as exhibit number 11. I'll pass it around now, but hand it back to be marked.
And obviously, Mr. Demers, you have a degree from an accredited school in engineering, is that correct?
Yes, University of Rhode Island.
And you have taken and passed the professional engineering license issued by the state of Rhode Island?
Yes.
And you are in good standing?
Yes.
At this time, I'd offer Mr. Demers as an expert, please.
While they're reviewing it, could you raise your right hand? Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Mr. Demers, can you please answer this gentleman's question
If I
regarding...
could just make it easier and plainer. 21 is the entire lot. I'd just like to bring to the attention of the board members the packet that Mr. Pimentel prepared, page number 11, verifies that the upland is 11.66. What I'm looking for specifically, the land where the condominiums are going. If that's available, it's going to tell the board and the people in the audience, how much land would be available for single-family housing on the north and west side of the property. Follow what I'm saying?
Yes, yes.
Answer that, yeah, we haven't, that was
Oh,
one
thank
you.
you.
I
You can
swear
answer
him
that
in.
in a minute.
I swear him in.
But do we accept him as an expert?
Oh, that's the,
This is the exhibit that's gonna go to Paul. I'll make a motion, we accept as expert.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
this has been sworn.
Fire away, Kevin.
Thank you. As Mr. Pimentel mentioned, the total lot area is approximately 21.7 acres, of which 11.6 acres are usable. 10.1 acres are wetlands. We received a DEM wetland verification. Obviously due to the amount of wetlands, we wanted to be certain that this area was developable and we wouldn't have any issues going forward developing the land. Approximately 6 acres of that 11 plus acres of upland area are located in the right-hand side of the site to the eastern side where the condominiums are proposed.
So, Mr. Chairman, I would
Kathy, who's that?
I would define from that there's approximately 6.5, or, 5.5 acres that would be available within Lot 31 on the northern side and the western side of the lot for two purposes. One, the proposed deeding of the properties, and secondly, if you look on the same packet, page number 13. Page 13 shows a second cul-de-sac and shows 20 single-family properties. So I think in the presentation that we're about to hear, they'd like to propose one project versus the other. Is somewhat of a bonus, if you'd like to choose to call it that, for the existing property owners with the condominiums. If they choose to go in the other direction, the deeded land that borders, well, I don't know, 13 different properties would be used, excuse me, for single-family homes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any more questions for Mr. Pimento? If not, I'll call Mr. Peter Scotti up, please.
Thank you, Pete.
Mr. Chairman, I am familiar that Mr. Scotti has appeared before more boards that I'm sure he wants to mention, and been quite glad as an expert.
Okay,
I would suggest the board accept him as an expert.
okay.
Make a motion we accept as an expert.
Second.
All in
State-
favor? Aye.
State your name and profession.
Peter M. Scotty, 403 South Main Street, real estate appraiser and broker.
Mr. Scotti, could you please use the microphone?
Would you raise your right hand? Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
That's Providence, Mr. Scott? South Main Street, is that Providence?
Providence.
Okay, for the record. Let me just give
Mr. Scotti, these documents that I'm holding in my hand, these appear to be a market study, is that correct?
Correct.
And is this something you prepared?
I did.
And it's dated today, is that correct?
Correct.
And I'm going to let you briefly tell the board what it is, and I will offer it as an exhibit at this time to Mr. DeFiore. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, exhibit number 12, the Scotty Market Study.
Mr. Scotti, I'll let you do a quick presentation. I just have two.
We are having a lot of exhibits that being just handed in, Mr. Sakachi, just,
I understand, but
I mean, it's,
I understand, and if the board needs more time to continue, we certainly will do that. I will tell you why. Because we wanted to use the most current information. There's been a lot of postings, incorrect information, that we're asking for a zone change. We're not asking for a zone change. There's been a lot of false information. I wanted to use the most current information, and when I prepare a market study, I wanted it to be dated in January. So Mr. Scotti, at my request, did not pre-do this study in 2019. He did it in January of 2020, because I want that in the record, because I assume, regardless of what outcome I have today, we'll end up in Superior Court. So I can respect, and I apologize for the lateness of this evidence, but it's within the purview for me to submit it at this time, and I have to prepare the record and protect my client's rights as well. So that's my justification, and I'm sorry again, but I have to do what's best for my client, and I appreciate that. And I tried to get Mr. Pimento's report, which is the land use report, in several weeks ago. So I've tried to balance this as much as I can. I'm going to be very brief with Mr. Scotti. Mr. Scotti, I'm going to ask you one question. I'll let you take through the thing. But if the board were to approve this project and these condominiums, age-restricted, were built, would they in any way devalue any of the neighboring property values?
Not at all. And the reason for that is very simple. If you get into the report, what I did was I ran a radius I'd done a report 6 months ago. I ran a radius starting in January 2018 to whatever that date that was in September. This redo was starting January 1 through today. So what I did was I took a 0.5, 1 mile, 2 mile, 3 mile, 4 mile, 5 mile radius from the subject. What's really germane here is a 0.5 to 1 mile from the subject. And what you find is that single-family houses in Greenbush, which is a nice neighborhood, well-kept, et cetera, you know, there's a big range of values, but when you cook it all down, you're basically, that neighborhood, when you look at it, is about a $250,000 to $275,000 neighborhood. Comps are right in the back, stats are right there. So I looked at that and I said, okay, the developer's going to put up 12 buildings, 24 units, age restricted, good quality, ranging in size from about 1,250 square feet to 1,400 square feet, 2 beds, 2 baths, garage, granite kitchens, etc. I ran condos in West Warwick. Now, most of the condos in West Warwick that have sold have been older units. So there really isn't that much of new construction that has sold recently, but there are a lot of asking prices. So that's in your data too. And The long and the short of it is that these units should sell for between $210 and $220 per square foot, or somewhere between $275 and $300,000 per unit. It's right on the money with the neighborhood.
What was that
Exactly.
amount again? That amount.
275 to 300,000. It's totally compatible with surrounding property values. The use is compatible with surrounding property values. You don't have traffic issues. They meet all the criteria to be granted a special use permit.
The square footage again? What's the average square footage again?
1,250 to 1,400.
Correct.
May I ask, are you?
Sure.
You okay? These are single floor units,
Two-story.
two-story. Do they have a garage?
Yes.
included? The garage square footage is included in
No.
the square footage?
No,
So you
just
have
the
a
living
sing-
area.
a single garage
Yes,
on the lower level?
yes, in front. Where's the, do we have a render?
No, we're trying to get two, we may get two-car garage.
It's certainly, they're all going to be one, some with two, in all probability.
Are they all gonna be the same dimension, regardless if they're one or two?
No, they're going to be a little bit different in sizes.
I understand that you don't necessarily need to do that now. That's more of a planning board
Yeah,
issue. So the 1250 to 1,400 square feet does not include the square footage of a garage.
gross living area.
Square footage garage going to be normally 22 by,
Well, 12 by 20 for a single, 24 by 20 for a double.
okay, all right, all right. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else?
So,
All right.
just one more quick question.
Yep, that's fine.
Based on what you just told us, two floors and garage and most of the square footage on the upper floor, approximate dimension of the two units combined? Approximate.
I'd like to answer if that's okay.
Yeah.
It's only because I know,
And if you don't have that
no,
dialed in yet,
that's exactly what I want to say. So
not a problem.
we're going to do our best, because we feel the market is single level. So we're going to try to do single level, but if we can't, there would be some two-bedroom, two level units. And we don't know the approximate size. We'll do that, if we're successful, big if, we're successful here tonight, we will then have to go to planning. But at that point, we will have all our engineering done, all the DEM done, and then everything will be pinpointed to the size and location. So at this time, if you were to approve this project, it would be no more than 24 units. Might even be less, but it'll be no more than that. And we're going to strive as best we can to make them single level. But as Mr. Scotty said, some of them may be two-story units as well. That will be determined at the preliminary planning board hearing, and then there's another final planning board hearing as well.
let me just tell you why I asked that question. You can see the dimensions of the project as it is now. When you went before technical review, and you guys don't have the technical review sheet? You do have it, okay. Technical review mentioned about visitors parking. Visitors parking has to go, it can go on the east side of the road to some degree. It can go between the units to some degree. But if you have to spread out for a single floor, which many or most of the new condominiums are in fact doing that, you're gonna be tight
On parking.
on parking. So maybe a combination of that also.
That's part of the engineering at the next level.
Yeah.
I will say this, that we're not asking for parking relief, that we will meet the requirements for
Yeah.
parking. It'll all be on site, it will not be on the street. And we feel that within the development, there'll be ample opportunities if we need additional parking to meet code, but at the preliminary hearing, we have that all buttoned up, and we'll know that. But if you have a garage, you'll have cars that can park, in the garage, and visitors that can park in front of the garage as well. So we'll make sure that there'll be ample parking, and we're not asking for any parking relief. We feel very confident from the, at least, preliminary engineering work that we've done so far, we can meet the parking requirement.
Excellent. Just one other thing that I just want to mention, which is maybe a housekeeping issue. When you went through technical review, for whatever reason, I think it's a typo on their report, they put that the cul-de-sac would be 50 feet in diameter, which, when you put a scale to your existing plan here, it's 90 feet. I think the minimum that was for it is 80. So I think if in fact it was discussed at the time of the technical review committee, seemingly that's already been adjusted here.
So I have Mr. Demers, and you were, I have to tell you, very sharp to pick that up, because that is exactly what it was, that we have designed to meet the requirement. And I don't know where that technical report, but I think I'll defer to Mr. Demers, but I think it's 88 feet or whatever it is.
This is prepared by the town.
Okay, so I'll let Mr. Demers answer that question, and thank you for catching that, please.
Yes, we'd met with the technical review committee in July of this past year. We had, I believe, the only attendees other than the planner were from the fire department, and we discussed that cul-de-sac. It's a 50-foot radius, which would be a 100-foot diameter. And when we met with the fire department, they had requested if we could make that a 65-foot radius at the time of preliminary plans. And we have placed that schematically on a plan and verified we wouldn't need any building relief for the nearby buildings if we have a 65-foot radius on that cul-de-sac.
I think that's a pavement radius.
Correct. It didn't necessarily need to be paved. It could be reinforced as well. But
my point is it's not a sidewalk. The sidewalk, if any, cannot be included within that.
That's correct. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, in view of the fact that Mr. Scacci mentioned preliminary hearing, and I would like to put on the record, just for members of the public who may not be familiar with the process, just so that it is on the record, that this application first goes to the planning board for what is called master plan approval. Master plan approval is strictly a procedure where an applicant goes in and says, this is our idea. Do you like our idea? Do you like this concept? The planning board said, yes, we like your concept, but before we will go any further, we want you to go over to the zoning board and get their okay on the special use that you need. So that's where they are today, before the zoning board. If the zoning board says, okay, we grant the relief you are seeking, they then have to go back to the planning board. And when they go back to the planning board, at that point in time, they have to satisfy the planning board that the drainage is met, that the square footage is met, that the cul-de-sac is met, that all of the detail is met, which they did not have to do in the first instance. And in my report to the zoning board, you will note that I have requested that in the event that this board should see fit to grant the application, I have requested that the zoning board add a number of stipulations. Basically, those stipulations are the same stipulations that the planning board imposed upon the applicant at master plan hearing. So when Mr. Scacci mentioned preliminary and final, I just wanted the members of the public who may not be familiar with the procedure to have it clear on the record that this hearing is a second step in a 3- and 4-step process.
Thank you very much. I have one final witness, and that was Mr.
Excuse me, I have,
Lombardo. Sure,
Just one question for Mr. Scotty, if I could.
certainly.
Just to clarify, reading through the report that was submitted, your purpose here was just, as it says, to determine the overall market value of the property surrounding the subject site, as well as determine the property value of the proposed condominiums.
Yes, sir.
Nothing in here that has anything to do with the proposed impact, or positive or negative, on the surrounding land values, correct?
Well, I think when you look at what the results of my study, that the market value of the proposed condominiums right in line with what's in the neighborhood. So there should be no impact.
Okay. But that's not in the report, though, correct? I haven't had a chance to read the whole thing, but,
I guess that's where I'm testifying.
okay.
But thank you for the question.
My final witness would be Mr. Lombardo.
Once again, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Lombardo has been here a few times, and I would recommend that the board accept him as an expert.
I move they accept as an expert. Second.
Could you state your name and profession, please?
Sure. Excuse me. For the record, it's Joseph Lombardo, Lombardo. I'm a land use planning expert, and I have a home office in Hope Valley, Rhode Island.
Raise your right hand. So I tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I will.
Mr. Lombardo, at my request, did you do a fiscal impact study for this proposed project?
Yes, I did.
And when was that study done?
I did it earlier last year as part of the master plan application before the planning board, so it is part of that record in that application.
And if that analysis, would you say, is still valid and accurate as of today, January of 2020?
Yes, it is.
And can you briefly tell the board, the zoning board, the findings of your study in terms of the fiscal impact if this project were approved to the town of West Warwick?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Shikachi, members of the board. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. I'll give you a quick recap of this fiscal impact study, which really has two important functions. One is to estimate the population of individuals that will live here, including any school-age children. And secondly is to estimate revenues and expenses to the community. So in the summary page of my report, the net revenue, as Mr. Shikachi mentioned in his opening remarks, is approximately $150,000 per year annually in today's dollars. And so just briefly on how I arrive at those numbers. You heard Mr. Scotty indicate that he felt that the average sales price would be somewhere between $275,000 and $300,000. For the purposes of my report, I used $275,000. At your current tax rate, it generates a little over $7,000 per unit. So you have, with the 24 units, roughly just under $180,000 in income to the community from those 24 condominiums. On the expense side, first of all, let me just say this. This is an age-restricted development. I'm actually indicating in my report that I wouldn't expect any school-age children here because of that. It's a fair housing question. But in essence, with an age-restricted development, it more or less not totally eliminates, but it can. In most cases, it does. I've also sold many condominiums in the state that even are not age-restricted, and typically the average typical buyer is my age and older. And occasionally you get a young couple or an individual. So they really don't generate school-age children, and particularly with the age restriction. But on the municipal side, there are obviously municipal services that any development would require. So in this case, I have the big items, obviously, are police and fire, parks and recreation. But coming up with a multiplier for those with the 48 individuals I project to live here, it's a small impact to the community of just under $30,000 annually in municipal expenses. So if you subtract that from the $180,000 projected on revenue, it's roughly $150,000 net to the community. And again, I've done many of these reports on many condominiums around the state, and I feel very comfortable with that projection here in West Warwick. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. And that's pretty much what I had to explain to you tonight. Okay? I'll be here. He's writing notes. Okay, okay. Thank you.
Joe, I have one question. Is there gonna be an HOA?
Yes, absolutely. And I tell you,
Well, an HOA, I would think that you wouldn't have any kids who are 7 years old.
I know that,
I would
but,
think.
but we want to do it all right if we get to that point. I want to say thank you. That concludes our presentation. We will stay here, answer any questions or any questions that may come up.
Mr. Chairman, one point that the chairman just raised, in view of the fact that it is a condominium, by state statute, it has to have a condominium association. The standard decision by the planning board, if the planning board should grant the application of preliminary and final, all condominium documents have to be reviewed by me. They have to include all of the necessary statement that the town doesn't provide snow removal, et cetera. It has to provide that if there are, I'll say, retention basins, that the condominium association is responsible for those, so that with a condominium project, before they can go and record it, I have to approve it in conjunction with the town planner.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
are we ready to ask questions? I guess we are.
No, we're good. Any,
Objectors, any,
any public comment?
I still have some questions.
Oh,
before
you got-
public comment.
Go
Are
for it.
we still allowed to ask questions?
yes.
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't think
We haven't,
We're
we have not moved to anyone coming in rebuttal. We're still under the applicant's part of the
I
case.
want to discuss the project more
Okay, with,
with the applicant.
okay, okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just to reiterate, we apologize, but we're not ready for public comment. I know you're standing there waiting to come up, but there was a miscommunication here. One of the members still had some questions, so I don't want to make you stand if you don't need to.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure who to address this to.
Shoot
It's a
shoot it at me, and I'll bring up
ask the question.
Thank you, appropriate party.
In regards to the project as it is stated now with the 24 condominiums on the east side of the project, and on your main presentation, that I see that there are 13 properties, 13 specific lots that will possibly be deeded
That's
to
correct.
13 different landowners that are existing there, some on the northern side of the property, some on the western side of the property. I wonder if you can explain to the commission exactly how that would work. I know one thing that I had in my thought process, that these properties could sustain in their own right as being separate from their existing landowners, that there'd be abutting. But as I understand, a few years ago, I'm not sure how many, that abutting properties need to be co-joined, so that properties are not landlocked.
So I can answer that. So what, excuse me, so what we have done as part of this, we've had a neighborhood meeting, and then we've had several planning board hearings, and the people who abut the property, excuse me, had concerns about adequate buffering. So to alleviate those concerns, we've offered them parcels of land directly behind their homes. They're not required to take it, they don't have to take it. If they wanted to, we would do the engineering and we would deed it to them in a form of either administrative subdivision or part of the process, and they can acquire that. If they didn't want it, we would also offer them a perpetual easement in the property, so they don't have to take ownership. What that will do, will ensure that they'd have a buffer, that they wouldn't have a single-family home behind them, they wouldn't have a condominium behind them, they'd have it in a natural state buffer. They could use it for whatever purposes that they deem appropriate and the town would allow. If they wanted a basketball court, or a tennis court, or a swimming pool, or a shed, or just green space, and leave it that way, it would be entitled up to the homeowner. We would increase their backyards for them. No one would be in any obligation to accept it if they didn't want to, but it would be offered to them at no charge. We have stated that both privately to them and publicly before the planning board. We would work, again, down the road, as we said, as Mr. DeFiore said, this project needs further approvals. We would work with them individually if they wanted them. We can include them in a subdivision process if that's what the town wanted, or we could incorporate it into the one we're going on now, or a separate action, or we could deed it with easements. So it's really a way of my client showing the people who live there that they should have really nothing to fear about this project, because as I said earlier, there was a lot of, at least in my opinion, misinformation about the project. So we've tried to restrict the age, the size, the location. We've tried to give buffers. We've tried to do everything we can to be a good neighbor. I know some people are concerned about the other development down the road. We and my client has had nothing to do with that project.
If I may continue a little bit, you would do this at your expense?
Absolutely, yes.
All the deed recording and whatnot? would be
All the
done at-
engineering, the deed is $85. We'll do that. It's not a problem. It's the engineering that's significant, and we will do all of that. We have an engineer, we're paying him, he's on site, he's doing survey, he's drafting deeds. It would be not a big, it'll be an expense, but we'll bear it. It will not be a large expense, because we're already there and working on the project.
What the main difference would be, if I understand it properly, that if you deed the property, now it's their square footage.
That's correct, it belongs to them.
11,000 square foot property added to, most of these are between 5,000 and 6,000. They're gonna have a 17,000 square foot piece of property. If they sell it, obviously, that's gonna be worth more than an 11,000 square foot property.
Absolutely.
On the flip side of that, there's gonna be some slight expense for extra square footage as far as taxes for the property tax. But again, if in fact that they take it as an easement, they can use the property just as well as if they took all the land and record it, and it's recorded with their own. But if it's an easement, when they go to sell it, they don't have any right to the property to include it on their property, and it does not directly include or gain for a sale price, for a resale value.
Mr. Galchi, if I may, I can assure the board that that presentation was made to the planning board. At the stage that it was made, it was too early for the planning board to say, yeah, we're going to impose that. However, the planning board has the authority to make that a condition of approval. The zoning board doesn't have that authority, but I will say that that was presented to the planning board.
And if I may add to what you're saying, many of the projects that come before zoning that we don't necessarily have final approval, that we swing back to planning, is the amount of buffer and how we, the zoning board, would like it to be buffered with berms, with evergreens, or whatever. In this particular case, 13 properties are going to be gaining probably 50% or more of the existing property that they have now. So they're going to be gaining a substantial amount. This is a substantial offer.
Thank you. It is.
Is that something they have to pay taxes on, Joe?
I'm sorry?
Would they have to pay taxes on that?
If they accepted the land,
Yep.
yes, they would have to pay. I think honestly, it'll be minimal, because it's just an extension of a backyard. It's not a buildable lot. It's an extension of the backyard, so it'll be minimal. if they accept it. If not, they can get an easement and they would pay no taxes. The taxes would be paid by us. So we're giving, the-
Or one time or yearly?
yeah, forever, perpetuity.
Yearly.
Perpetuity.
Perpetuity, okay.
And question for council is, does that require zoning to modify those properties?
No.
No, okay.
Depending on how it's done, as Mr. Saccaggi, as Mr. Saccaggi said, in general terms, it would be called what is considered an administrative subdivision, because all that is happening is they're taking a piece of their property, they're giving it to somebody else. It's not on any highway, it's not changing much, so the town planner is allowed to do it, as opposed to needing a full hearing. However, when it was presented to the planning board, the presentation was made to the planning board because of some concerns of the neighbors, that we're willing to establish a buffer zone. The planning board never got into, we will require this, that, or the other thing. However, the planning board does have the authority to say to them, we'll approve your project, but you've got to do at least grant an easement or something of that nature. It's not yet before the planning board.
Kind of putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
Just one other question. Are you looking to make a presentation for the opposite side of what we see here regarding the single-family houses?
No.
Not at this time?
No. I mean, we submitted it. I think it's real. I think there's a possibility. We're going to just stand by what we presented.
Well, again, this board has seen and made comparisons back and forth. 20 single-family units is going to create substantially more traffic, and it will absolutely, every child will be extra. And I know in my house, I only had 4 people living there. We had 5 cars. So the traffic driven from single-family versus a limited aged or a minimum aged condominium project is quite different. Condominiums, again, and I use this term, it's a slang term, but it's very accurate. Condominiums in any community, and West Warwick is one of them, is considered a cash cow. Still has that designation. Another thing I just wanted to mention also, there are other condominium projects that have done well in West Warwick, very similar to this. Quaker Valley on East Greenwich Avenue, condominiums. I'm not sure the Quaker Valley name that's on Quaker Lane, that's across from the courthouse that's in West Warwick. I think that's completed. I think that's about 50% occupied over there. I'm not sure if we've looked further down New London Turnpike, across 95 on the left-hand side, opposite Center of New England. I'm not sure if that's Coventry or West Greenwich.
It's Coventry.
Coventry. I've rode in there when it first started, and maybe in the last year I've rode in there. There isn't one single unit that hasn't been built, and every one of them is sold. And they're very similar to what we see going up. Very similar to what's on Quaker Lane. Very similar to what's going to be on Greenbush. Greenbush has had some problems, but that's an understatement. But let me just reiterate, that project is impossible to go away. There's a substantial amount of investment that's put there. Unfortunately, they've had some labor problems. That being said, cash cows still are something that a town of our size, with the fact of going to a comprehensive plan and understanding how much West Warwick is built out. West Warwick is probably right now about 97.5% built out, maybe even higher than that. There's only X amount of land left. Golf courses, and swamplands. Not too much buildable property left. So our board, planning, zoning, we make decisions that these are probably, might be the last 3 or 4 or 5 projects that West Warwick is gonna see for maybe 30 or 40 years. And that's the reality of it. Thank you.
Anything else, Joe?
Can we take a 5-minute recess to go to the bathroom? Okay. We're going to take a 5-minute recess to go to the bathroom, to have a bathroom break. Anybody might need it. Okay. At this point now, we'll have
Yes,
any of the
Mr. Scott, you
butters-
are rested?
Yes.
The applicant is rested, so anyone who wants to speak in opposition? Or in favor?
Or in favor? Yes. good.
That would have been
Come on
your
up,
job.
Carolyn, you're first.
Please state your name and address.
My name is Carolyn Petreccia. I live at 27 Nicole
Could
Drive,
you spell your last name, please?
Petreccia.
Raise your right
27
hand. So tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do. So I know a lot of you have been on this board for a long time, and I want to take issue with a few things that are going on here. And I have done my due diligence, like Mr. Scotty has done his due diligence, and I am in direct opposition of what Mr. Scotty sees going on in this town. Number one, I live in this town. I could go to any street corner on this town and put a value on a piece of property, because I work the streets every day in this town and other towns. My job is to analyze and tell people whether they're making a good investment. And I can tell you right now, condos are not cash cows unless they sell. And if they aren't selling, the town of West Warwick will not be getting any money. And right now, the condos that the planning board and the zoning board have approved over the past 3 or 4 years are not selling. Period. In a nutshell, I have the facts in front of me.
Can you just tell us which ones you're talking
Yes,
about?
I'm talking about the new ones that you've approved, Hilltop, Villanova, all the new ones, not the existing ones, the new ones that you've seen fit to approve. The fact of the matter is the median price range of a condo in West Warwick is $165,000. Last year, in the fiscal year of 1/1/19 to 1/28/20, there were 109 condos that sold in this town. The median price was $165,000.
How many, please?
109. 109. Out of those 109 condos, only 10 of the 300 or so that has been approved for age-restricted, one level, the baby boomers, those are the only ones that have sold in a year. Now, I called all my realtor friends that are involved with these condos, and they say the same thing. West Warwick is oversaturated with condos. We cannot sell these units. So the fallacy of this being a cash cow is you're not going to see any money because the absorption rate is going to take about 15 years at least to clear these condos out. Now, that's a pretty big gamble, because if you go up and you look at the condos around, you'll see the developers are not putting them up quickly. The reason they're not putting them up quickly is because they are not selling. Now, you can ask yourself, why is Mike Kent sold out in Cedar Ridge and has 30 more sold and has a waiting list? Why? The one that you just talked about at Exit 7.
Okay.
The one right by Dunkin' Donuts. Why are 2 developers in Warwick almost sold out of their condos in less than 7 months? Because those communities are not saturated with condos. Everybody thinks condos are the panacea to money problems in the town. That's a basic fallacy of how our town runs. Now, you may think I'm crazy, but I have the facts right here. These condos are not going to clear out in time to help our fiscal situation. You got to come up with something better, guys. You can't count on your condos. They're not going to do it.
May I respond? How many of the condominiums that you talked about, the newer condominiums?
Yes.
That have been approved recently, how many are completed condominiums?
Right now, I only see 2, 4, about 9, couple on Hilltop, maybe about a dozen, because the builders can't afford to put them up if they're not selling.
Well, I believe that's your opinion.
No, it's not my opinion.
You're not
That's basic,
You're
no.
not representing anyone. but
I've talked to the
yourself.
realtors, Peter.
I'm asking you if you're representing yourself.
I'm representing myself as maybe a little bit of an expert on what I know what I'm doing.
I understand that completely, Carol.
Okay.
You know that I realize that you have been one of the most visual
Mm-hmm.
realtors that's been in Kent County and specifically West Warwick. The thing that I want to bring up is that in the same way that a town council
Mhm.
or a zoning board or planning board, we're not responsible to make an applicant for a business, for a car wash, for an ice cream parlor, hairdresser, or condominium apartment project. We're not responsible to make those applicants successful.
But you approve them, Peter.
No, that's correct. We approve by the letter of the law.
Correct.
We approve by the letter of the law. If these people sitting here
Choose to lose money?
Excuse me, disagree with you on the ability that they're not going to be able to sell these, that's not this board's problem. And it's not the problem of the town council. Very specifically, it's their problem.
Correct.
Now, that being said, the fact that I labeled it a cash cow, when you compare what a municipality gets from a single-family home to this project, it is absolutely a cash cow, and I'm telling you that from a municipal standpoint, where I come from, or I came.
Peter, you
Hold on,
said it
I'm
was a
not done
cash
yet.
cow.
I'm not done yet. The fact of the matter is, it's a chosen area that investors go into. I was in this chamber, a couple, he comes in, geez, I can't make my rent. The rent for my restaurant is too high.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you approved this. They got the built permits from the clerk's office. That doesn't guarantee that you're gonna be successful. My point is, there's problems with each business. It's not the responsibility for municipalities, whether it be a zoning board, a planning board, a town council, to get into the finances of an applicant. And this is exactly what we're talking about. These people obviously would disagree with you. I don't know that yet.
They can disagree with me, that's fine.
But my point is, we're not here to concern ourselves with the reasons that you're bringing up. We have to concern ourselves with the letter of the law.
Okay, so in the letter of the law, I just want to caution you that there is an old adage called supply and demand. And the demand in West Warwick is not good, okay? When you sit here and you listen to the, shall we say, dream that these things are going to sell out
Again,
okay,
that's not
no,
our
I know you don't want to hear that, Peter.
Supply and demand is
I
our
know you don't want to,
responsibility.
but maybe the neighbors in Greenbush want to know what's going to be happening. It's just not realistic. It's not realistic to assume that. And supply and demand is what makes the real estate market move every day. If you don't have the demand,
In most retailers. and everything,
exactly.
supply and demand.
And, you know, we talk about age restricted. I don't see the baby boomers leaping on anything. The baby boomers can go to Western Cranston. The baby boomers can go to Exeter. The baby boomers can go any place they want because they don't have to.
Baby boomers went a quarter of a mile over.
They're over at Mike Kent's development. That's right. Why are they over there?
Baby boomers went across the street from Quaker Lane.
Well, you need quite a few baby boomers. You need quite a few of them. No, you don't. You don't need any. You can sit here and you can.
The property in North Carolina.
No, I know. Well, you can make, Peter, you can make fun of it, but the fact of the matter is, what you decide tonight affects Nottingham. That's right. Okay, you can be in North Carolina, but the people will be here in Nottingham saying, you had a chance not to approve the special use. It is a special use. It doesn't have to be hand printed that this is a normal use, because it's not a normal use.
Mr. Chairman, if I might just spell out the law that I think Peter is referring to. When a matter comes before this board, I'm saying it to give instructions to the board as a result of the issue that's just been raised. This board looks at
5 bullet points.
and it has 5 items.
Right.
Is it compatible with the neighboring land uses? Will it create a nuisance? Will it hinder future development? Will it conform to all applicable sections of the zoning ordinance? And is it in conformance with the intent of the comprehensive plan?
And we have
If
to
it
agree with
meets
all of
those, if it meets those, whether or not it's going to be a success,
Right.
this board cannot
Obligated
consider.
to go for it. The
The 5
applicant
bullet
can march
points.
down here to
We have to
I
agree with
understand
all
that.
5 bullet points.
I
For
understand that.
people in the audience, that's what we have to do. We have to agree with all 5 of the bullet points.
And you guys are in a tough,
We don't have to agree with any of them, or we can agree with all of them. But that's what the board does. That is our letter of the law, as that man says, those 5 bullet points. That's what we have to go by.
I understand that. I'm trying to
just telling
bring,
the people
yeah,
out
I know,
there.
I know
I know
that.
you know.
Yeah,
You've been here
yeah.
before.
I'm trying to bring you real-life situations here, and I think in the overall look, you can't deny that our governing boards have allowed a lot of condominiums come into this town, more so than the average town. Whether you think it's a cash cow or not, the fact is we are becoming the condominium community of Rhode Island. North Providence used to hold that title. I think we're going to be taking that title real soon. But I ask you to think about why you want to vote for this and take into consideration that right now, the way the other ones are moving, they're not moving. Unless we have some euphoria over condos in West Warwick, I think that you'll see that this continues in this trend. It's going to be a slow uphill battle for these developers coming in, trying to get rid of their product under what you allow them to do. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
State your name and address.
Mark Fleury, 76 Nottingham Drive.
Raise your right hand. So tell the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do. First, I'd like to present an exhibit to the board. Ask for it to be considered, because I know one was presented this evening.
You're not the petitioner, though.
What's that?
You're not the petitioner.
I can certainly get a petition up here. So, that's fine, but it's for consideration and counter what was provided.
So I can mark, what is this?
So this is a petition that was developed by one of the neighbors in the community. that I-
Exhibit number 13, a petition in opposition to the application.
That's correct. And I believe that if you check and cross-reference the petition that was presented, I think you're going to see some of the same names on the one that was provided by the applicant to this application, because I think there was some misinformation that was going on when this project initially went out there. And I think some of those green houses that you see there are probably, some of them may be here, some of them may be on that application that stand in opposition to this project because they did not understand what they were signing. So I think you should weigh that when you look at it. Now, I do want to talk about the standard that's applicable here today and what you are getting at. In specific, and I'd like to address some of the points that you brought up, Mr. Kelsey. So you need to look to see whether something is in conformity with the neighborhood. That was the first standard, wasn't it not? Looking around, in every other condominium project that you cited, not one of them egresses through a neighborhood. They all come off of a major thoroughfare. Greenbush, Quaker Valley, LaGris, they all go off of major thoroughfares. They're not coming through a platted subdivision or a neighborhood. This project is not in conformity with the surrounding area. You're putting up multifamily housing in a single-family neighborhood. That does not belong there.
Owner-occupied multifamily housing.
Yes, but if you want to look at the conformity.
You can't state half of it, you gotta state it completely. It's not an apartment complex.
I'm not saying it's an apartment
No,
complex.
I'm telling you it's, and you know it's not, and you know I know it's not, but I'm asking you to state it what it is. It's an owner occupied multifamily apartment complex, multifamily project.
Correct, it's a multifamily
That-
project that does
that's
not
correct.
belong in a
It is-
neighborhood.
It is on the books, condominiums are multifamily housing. That's what the use permit is in variance for.
So, exactly, because when this was permitted, if they wanted to go put up houses, they would not be here today. Because they wouldn't have to come here today as long as they met all the planning requirements. They need to come to you for a special use permit because they need to meet those qualifications. Then don't meet them because their project does not match the conformity, does not look like what the rest of that neighborhood looks like.
Well,
And it's going to affect
would you-
people's property
would you
values.
agree that all of the, in fact, I think all of the condominium projects that we've had in West Warwick has the same criteria? They're multi-unit, owner-occupied, and they probably have been, being built on residential, either R7, R8, or R10 land.
But the egress, the entrance to those
I
projects
understand.
do not go through a neighborhood.
Then I would
They come off
suggest
of
that
major
that be-
roads.
That be your issue. That, I would suggest that.
That is one
be-
of the issues.
Well, I think that's the only issue that qualifies so far.
Because that does not belong in this type of an area. The size of the lots that these are going to be built on, those are not in conformity with the size of the lots of everybody's house that's in that area. It's going to affect people's property values because the way that this is being constructed, you're going to have other, they're talking about traffic coming into this. They're going to have to get their own trash pickup. That's going to be coming in at all odd times. You're going to be impacting people's in the neighborhood. Okay? This project does not fit for that purpose, and I think it's going to affect property values. You talk about this being a cash cow. Another reason for denying this project is because it's being done for financial gain over what they could do with the project. They're putting in more units. They're doing this because they want to make more profit on the project. That is a violation of the law. And if they're doing it for that reason, and they could make it, just because they can make more money than putting up houses, that does not entitle them to a right to a special use permit.
Mr. Fleury, you're wrong.
You're wrong.
That is not,
You're absolutely
that
wrong.
is not what the financial gain means. They have the right to develop their property. However, financial gain in that aspect is not the financial gain that is mentioned by a Supreme Court in a number of cases, and you know that.
Well, I disagree. This project will affect people's property values. I stand here and I will tell you that it's going to impact the traffic more so than you're going to see with houses. We're going to have problems with drainage, just like we're having problems with drainage on the other property, which we were told that wasn't going to happen.
I would like to know where you are just getting that single piece of information. Do you get it from where you would find information out, how many children are in a single-family unit? Where are you, a single-family home? Where would you get that information that you could understand how much traffic is coming out?
What's that?
Did you look up and understand how many people and how many children would be in a single-family plat versus condominiums?
I'm using my common sense, Peter.
Okay.
Okay, they're going to have two people living in the
Town
units. There's
councils-
nothing to say that they
town
can't have kids
councils-
living in those
Town
units.
councils and boards just can't use common sense. We go to boards like Kids Count, and you get figures from Kids Count that will tell you in every community in the state of Rhode Island, how many children, how many adults, all the information that basically you want for a lot of different references. That's one of the main places to go.
Mr. Chairman, if I interrupt again on a comment that Mr. Fleury just made. Common sense. Mr. Fleury is well aware that an expert has testified. This board is not allowed to take common sense from a layperson in contradiction to an expert.
I'm getting up and stating my opinion. I think as a right as a citizen, I have the right to state that. And I understand what you're saying. I do think I'm making a fair point, and nobody has contested this, that this project is not in conformity with what the rest of that neighborhood looks like. And that needs to be taken into consideration by this board. It should be a determination that is used. This project should be denied. It's not a conformity. They have the right to build houses. They should go and build houses on this site. We shouldn't be concerned with impact on the schools. This is a neighborhood. We moved to this area. All the neighbors in that area moved to that area because there are kids. Peter, you came to that area to raise your kids. Other people, my parents grew up in that area to raise their kids. There's nothing wrong with adding 20 more houses to raise kids in that area so that it stays in conformity with the rest of that neighborhood. And that's what should be done with this project.
It's possible, you know what would change that? And I understand the people that are in the audience. What changes that project, very specifically, is the people that want to have that type of project there needed to buy that land. They didn't. People, this is a democracy. People can buy and sell whatever they like. If you want to develop properties for a single-family project over here, single-family built, you gotta deal with the wetlands, you gotta deal with a lot of things. The topography on here is crazy. It drops down from Lancer Lane, which I built a house on Lancer Lane, 1980, know the area very well. The end of Lancer Lane goes into a dead end. Lancer Lane could have been developed if there was a zoning change, changing it back to residential, which is now, if you look on the map, zone BP, business park.
Correct. It's not gonna
So
be a
another
solar
thing
farm.
that's on there,
Yep.
on the east side of the project, is all vacant land, which just coincidentally was the buffer area when the water park was coming in, which I know a little bit about.
And now, right, and they're developing that project, it's gonna be a solar farm that we're gonna have over there.
I don't know, haven't been over here, I have no idea, maybe I heard.
No, it
that-
went,
that-
it
they're
went through
coming somewhere.
planning, I was at the meeting,
Like
it
I
went through
said,
planning, that's
there's
fine.
a lot of land left in West Warwick.
That's fine. This project is not in conformity, and to get back to your point, it's zoned residential for single family. They wouldn't have to be here for a special use. They have a use that they can use for this project. They presented you a map. Haven't heard any testimony as to what the cost would be for that project, haven't heard any testimony what they would be selling houses for in that area, but they can use it. They don't need to put in condominiums. They're not prohibited. They have to come to you for a special use permit. I'm telling you, this is not in conformity. Drive around the neighborhood, take a look at it. It does not match what is already there.
Go ahead, Joe, go ahead.
I just want to ask
Can you ask a question or have a comment?
one simple question about Mr. Fiore, and I just want to know if he's here as a neighbor, or is he?
He's here as a neighbor. I'm sure
Okay.
he's here as a neighbor, yeah.
I just want to know if he was representing somebody, who his client was, that's all.
No, I don't think so. It was just a
I
concerned citizen.
don't think he's in the 200-foot radius, but.
State your name and address, please.
Robert Lally, 75 Nottingham Drive,
Please spell your last name.
Lally.
Raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do. Well, first of all, I feel like the David and Goliath here. We have a lot of experts telling us all the stipulations of how this is right and that should be done and this works. Well, first of all, I want to talk about the traffic. I am the one that petitioned the major in the police department to have a stop sign put at Nottingham Drive, at the intersection of Maid Marion, because it's a three-way intersection, okay?
Yep.
And the reason I did that was because at about 1:30 in the afternoon, several days, 2 o'clock, little children walking up the street. Not the street, excuse me, we don't have any streets in there, we have drives and lanes. There's no center lines, there's no edges. Kids are walking on this side of the street, that side of the street, and they kind of play. So the traffic in that area is detrimental to some of these children, because I've been out there. And I can tell you right now, I'm called the mayor. People laugh at me because I tell people to slow down. I actually took all the trees in my woods and trimmed the bottom off of them so people could see going around the corner. That's how much traffic we get, right? The last thing we need is more traffic, trust me. I've been there since 1978, okay? And when I got there, I was told, this is a residential neighborhood. You never have to worry about anything but residential homes. Perfect. That's one of the reasons I built my house. Mike Satmary built my house. You know him, don't you, Peter?
Certainly do.
Okay. Mike Satmary built a house. Do you know why Nottingham stopped where it is? Because Mike Satmary took a look up there and he said, awful lot of wetlands up there and it really doesn't really go anywhere and they have to put he said it really wasn't that area to be developed, so he didn't develop it. But that's beside the point. What I can tell you is, though, as far as valuation, the house at the end of the street is listed at 349. That's a long way from 300,000, isn't it? And that's right at the corner of Nottingham and Greenbush Road. It's listed at 349 right now for sale. And you're telling me that all those houses in there average at 270, 275? I find that hard to believe. Very, very hard. As a matter of fact, I think if you look in the West Warwick records, you're going to find out when it came to appraisal of, I'm not sure what you call it, home in that area go from 275 to over $300,000. That's the average. But that's because they're residential homes. Once you introduce more condos in there, which we already have ongoing as you get there, obviously, there have been, let me see, I want to say probably more people I've talked to. By the way, nobody talked to me about, nobody interviewed me because I don't live right close. I'm outside of the green area, unfortunately. But guess what? How do you think they get to the green area? They go by my house, okay? I have to back out of my driveway to get onto the road. I can't drive out. Oh, that's another traffic problem. You forgot. A lot of people, they back out because they can't turn around. I don't have a big yard in the back. I have a swimming pool, but I don't have a big yard, okay? That's where my turnaround would be. So I guess what I'm saying is I have backed out of my street, my driveway, got halfway out, and here come the cars around the corner. Don't even slow down. Now, there is a stop sign on Nottingham heading eastbound. There's a stop sign coming down Maid Marian heading northbound, which maybe they'll slow down, maybe they won't, but it's very, very dangerous there. And to be honest with you, just to show you how people are clever, the stop sign is in front of my house. The people on Maid Marian, they get on the left-hand side and shoot up the road. They don't have to stop because they're not going to go around the corner. Okay? So you talk about traffic, and you talk about age and 55. The 55s are out there early in the morning, probably at the gym joint, whatever you want to call it, okay? That's where they are. And don't tell me they don't go out there. Up until 10, 11 o'clock at night, I sit there in my family room and I can see the cars. Majority of the cars slow down. The stop sign has done wonders for that area. It really has. And, I mean, UPS and FedEx and Amazon, they all slow down. And the school buses even almost come to a complete stop, which I think is a great thing, right? And the reason is because the traffic is so excessive. Remembering that all the people that go up there, they end up going to Drawbridge. Now they got to go into Drawbridge. They can't get out. They have to come back this way because somehow we didn't manage to let them access that road. Okay, I can't remember. Is it Compton Road? Is that the name of it? And
East Greenwich.
yeah, and unfortunately, Coventry is planning condominiums on that road, and if they plan to put condominiums on that road, then they better open up their back of that for us, and I don't see why not. Now, in Warwick, I believe they were talking about condos cannot exit into a residential area. I think they have to exit onto a street or a road, okay? So these are exiting in the middle of a plot, right in the middle of my plot. That's what they're exiting. And to me, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, any of you people, I don't care, I don't know where you live, but suppose at the end of your street somebody decided, I'm going to put up a little repair shop. I just got to go before zoning. They'll change it. Why? What is the purpose of having a zoning? It's zoned that way for a reason. And what I'm telling you is, condos do not belong there. I know the houses have 2.5 children. I don't know what half a child is, but that's what they say. I've heard that say. 2.5 children per household, but that's a funny-looking kid.
Count.
Anyway.
Kids count.
Huh?
Kids count.
Yeah.
So it's an
Point is-
organization where to get figures from.
The point is, we have more than enough traffic. Peter, you live right around the corner.
I do. You know how many cars go by my house every day?
Not as many as mine.
Really?
Maybe more.
Really?
Well, wait a minute. No, wait a minute. I know you live east.
How about 17,000 cars a day by my house every day? How about 22,000 cars per day from Greenbush to Route 2?
Yeah, and
Would
how
that
many?
be a figure
Wait a
that
minute.
might go into your
Stop right
program?
there. How many going down your street are on a drive or a lane. A drive, define a drive. You know what a drive is? It's a way to get from here to there. It's not a road, it's not a street, it doesn't have center lines, it doesn't have edges on it, it doesn't have any of that. So the children, believe me, and the school buses stops right at the end of Greenbush and Nottingham. They walk up the street, and I watch them, both sides of the street, and they're playing. So any traffic that you want to introduce into that area can be detrimental. That's why the stop sign is there. I'm not going to say any more because, I think you get my point. We really do not want condos in that area. I know people are going to say they'd love to have them. They don't live where I live. They don't drive by their house, so that's one of your biggest problems. Okay?
If I may, could you hold on for a second?
Sure.
I want to just ask you one thing. Are you in favor of more traffic or less traffic?
Am I in favor of more traffic?
More traffic going by your house.
Could
In
you get
favor of
back
more
to the
traffic or less traffic? No, I'm asking a question.
Robert,
If I say houses,
Robert.
that's going to be more traffic.
Mr. Lally, get by the microphone.
Okay.
There we go.
I'll make it interesting for you.
It's a proven fact
Yeah?
by by single-family and condominiums. Condominiums create much less traffic.
But,
No, I'm just asking you.
All right,
I don't care how I'm just trying to give you some information.
But think
I want to
about
give
it.
you a little bit more information. You said Crompton Road.
yep,
I was councilman in your area for 6 years. John D'Amico, I don't know if he's still here or not. He's the councilman for your area now.
yep.
People don't want the road opened at Crompton Road. They don't want it open.
Who is they?
They want to drive by your house.
Who's they?
The people in Nottingham too.
Excuse me.
Nottingham too.
Excuse me. That shows how little you know
I see a
about
lot
center of
people
New
shaking
England.
their head, yes.
You know nothing about the center of New England. Why do you think it's so great, the center of New England? You're going to get out and get on 95 right away. They want to exit that way. We're not arguing about drawbridge. I don't want to get that way. What I'm trying to tell you is, you're saying 55 or older people come in. Well, they don't have any children, so they can drive any way they want. But people who have families, I got children. I got to kind of be a little bit more careful.
Just for a correction that I need to make. I said 24,000.
24,000?
2,400 cars come by my house every day. And the other way, 1,700 cars a day.
You know what? And half of those, you know what they are?
They're people cutting through.
Exactly.
But you know,
Exactly, they're
bought my
cut-throughs.
land, when I bought my land, I knew that.
You knew they were going to have a cut through there? You knew that?
East Greenwich Avenue is a federal road, a federal road.
Yeah.
This town got monies from the federal road, which another town councilman, between us, gave away to another
Okay,
ward.
okay,
Can't say who, can't say where.
All right.
You guys can figure it out yourself.
okay.
Okay?
Has nothing to do with
Federal
our
road, the
purview.
federal roads were here first.
All
East
right.
Greenwich Avenue, Main Street,
The only
Providence Street, they were the first roads in West Warwick.
let me finish and I'll leave.
Mr.
The only
Lally.
thing, the
Mr.
only
Lally.
thing that you don't realize,
Mr.
okay.
Lally, let's go on.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Anybody else? Okay.
State your name and address, please.
Lloyd Updike, 42 Crossbow Lane,
Would you spell your name?
O-P-D-Y-K-E.
O-P-D-Y-K-E.
Correct.
Raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Absolutely. Gentlemen, I don't know about this water table thing. All I can tell you is behind my house, I have a pond, I have a stream, and I have an earthen dam. So this situation of giving extra land out wouldn't do me a bit of good. Only because I just have water coming in my yard constantly. Now, I'm a former builder, and we moved here from a different state, and I have built houses quite a few different places. And the reason that these houses are mostly all raised ranches or split levels, whatever you want to call them, is because of a high water table. That's why they're all split levels and raised ranches. And by the way, there's a river that runs through our street, which hasn't been mentioned, by the way.
It's called Harding Brook.
I don't,
Harding Brook.
Harding Brook.
I believe that's what you're talking about.
I believe so. So it causes enough problems over here. I'm just, I'm bringing it up. I don't understand why there has to be a zoning change. You couldn't put in a water park, and you couldn't put in a casino. But you're talking about putting in condos? Really? Okay,
Sir, just for the record.
sure.
Brought to our attention. Hawkinson Brook. Harding Brook is closer to the school. Hawkinson Brook meanders through this area. It's on our report from one of the. Excuse me?
It's got veins, they run underneath our house on Crossbow, they go right across the street into the pond that he has in his backyard.
Yeah, probably so. You're right, the whole area is saturated.
Right, exactly.
And they do put,
Yeah.
and they do put exactly what you're saying, raised ranches.
Right.
And the condominiums, none of them in our area have basements.
I have a basement, I live right across the street.
In a condominium,
Please,
One person at a time. This gentleman and that gentleman. You can have your turn to talk, but it's his turn right now, okay? And any other commentary, you can come up to the mic and talk after, okay? Thank you.
you're right.
So, I mean, the only thing I'm saying is, you know, it's high water table, you've got wetlands behind my house,
Sir, they know that. They know that.
but it
It's in
hasn't
their
been,
report.
my point is, it hadn't been brought up.
It is in their report.
Okay,
It's on page 1 of their report, bottom left.
okay.
I didn't see it.
Nor did I.
Again, Mr. Chairman, if I might
Yep.
clarify. As I said earlier, they have to go back to planning.
Okay,
That type of information is before the planning board, not the zoning board. The planning board has to determine, is there gonna be a water problem? Is there, you know, all of that kind of stuff is a separation of obligations.
okay,
Okay, just to clarify your point, that it hasn't brought up. The reason it hasn't is it's their obligation, if it gets past here to the next hearing.
gotcha. Okay. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you very much.
State your name and address.
Steve Harabin, 10 Crossbow Lane,
Would you spell your last name, please?
H-O-R-I, B as in boy, I-N,
H-O-R,
I, B as in boy, I-N.
raise your right hand. So tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do. Got his name, that lawyer over there, said neighbors were misled of signing a petition. I was the guy who went around with it. I had 2 prints, which showed houses and condos. Like, a lot of us, we're here for not either one of them. But if I'm gonna have one, I'm gonna take the condos over the houses. I showed them both the print, they signed it. If they were confused, they could have asked me, but I showed them both and which one I was signing for, and that was for the condos. And then the other guy who just left, if you notice the print with the houses, I think there's a house right behind his house where it is all wetlands, but they can build all houses there. So, I don't know, you should look at the print. But I've been there 18 years. I back out of my driveway every day. On a curve, they come, Nottingham to Crossbow, like a racetrack. They come around the corner, they hug my mailbox, and go straight up. They see me backing out, they stop. They got brakes. Like I said, I've been there 18 years. We have traffic, but no more than if I visit my sister, my brother. My sister's in East Providence. Another development, houses in front, condos in the back. She lives in the condos in the back. Not a problem. They're all sold. Where I live, if you put houses, the road goes right along my backyard. When I bought my house, they told me that's wetlands, they'll never build. That's why I bought the house.
Not true.
But this is what a selling point. The Realtor told us, so I believed it, bought the house. Here we are 18 years later, and now they have two things. They're going to have houses or condos. I don't want the houses. I'm old, getting old. So I don't want screaming kids in my backyard. I don't know. Everybody around me is old. You got a couple of new people with some kids. Across the street, they said they're leaving because they need a bigger house. But everybody's old around me. So I don't understand. I'd rather have the condos. You're not going to see them. They're way out in the woods. Maybe in the winter I'll see them. But you need to walk back there. Tons of woods. So you don't see them. You're not going to see them. It doesn't bother me. And like I said, I'm 10 Crossbow. It's right in my backyard. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir, Mr. Kelsey.
I'd just like to add something that this gentleman brought out. It's an excellent point. The applicant is not bringing forward a Plan B. But I'd just like to reiterate that this gentleman was talking about for the benefit of the people here, because sometimes they need to understand what a Plan B could look like. You have whether you have a colonial, single-family, cape, whatever, if it's on the middle of your property, you probably have a backyard that might be 30 or 40 feet from the back door to the edge of your property. From that edge of your property, you bring in single-family homes, another 40 feet away is going to be the house. So house, 40 feet more your house. Back to back, you can look in to see if they got their lights on, if they have shades or blinds. That's not the case with the project that these people are investing a substantial amount of money because they feel the best value and the best return on their dollar is what they're proposing. But I'm just telling you, they're not proposing a Plan B. But every project that we've got here seems to go into that. Well, what if this and what if that? First of all, and I said this from property owners on the east side of Nottingham Drive for the project in Greenbush. For 25, 30 years, you enjoyed no one there. You enjoyed privacy. You should have got with your neighbors and tried to buy a parcel of that land to protect your privacy. But the fact of the matter is someone else bought it, and someone else is now investing their large piece of block of money to put in condominiums there. And there was other companies that came forward with large apartment building. Most of us weren't in favor of that, but whatever the case is, I would absolutely think that the landowners, 17 landowners, 13 landowners that are going to abut this property, I think that there's a really good outcome for you. And one other thing, I'm not sure if it was mentioned, the east side of this project is business park. So there's privacy still going to be there. I don't know really what something could be put in there. Mark Fleury mentioned that could be
Solar panels.
solar panels. Solar panel park. That's great. It's not going to create traffic. It's going to create industry. It's going to be good for the town. It's going to be good for privacy. So, you know, there's something, you got to try and look at everything. And the bottom line is, as our solicitor said, we're obligated. We got 5 things that we have to go by, 5 things to check off. And it's from our charter.
Okay. All right, Pete, you're good.
I'm good.
You're good. I think you said your piece.
Please state your name and address.
Carrie DeWitt, 1 Misty Oaks Court,
Spell your last name, please.
DEWITT.
Raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do. Mine's more just a question. I'm trying to find out about the access to the property because myself and the other houses that live on Misty Oaks Court, it looks like that they may want to do some sort of an access there. Is it going to remain a court? Is it just going to be an access to get
think
through?
I think that's that's a question for you, Joe, I guess, right?
I will just show this young lady.
Mm-hmm.
Back there, go ahead, I'll try.
You're welcome to have mine, but we have one access only in and one access out. That's the only one.
Misty Court will remain either way.
Okay.
We're not changing it, we're not touching it, we're not cutting through it. We're leaving that street alone.
What's the distance of the buffer between the homes and
Show me where,
roads along like Drawbridge Drive?
where is Joybridge Drive?
Oh, God, I don't know my glasses on. This is Drawbridge Drive right here. This
On the
is
north
Misty Oaks
side.
Court.
So-
the buffer's through
Yes.
there.
On the west side of the project.
Yeah, I am, it's about over 546 feet, maybe at least 600 feet.
All right, it's a little more clarification. This is just,
Sure.
my first notice of this
I
was a letter I received.
I understand,
2 weeks
and
ago.
I want to also tell you and everyone else, these plans are on file, and they have been on file at the Planning Department and Zoning Department, and they're all open for public inspection. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Come on up, Roger.
Midnight tonight.
Please state your name and address.
Roger P. Richards Jr.
Spell your last name, please.
RICHARDS.
Raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do. All right. How do I explain this? Obviously, I live at 1 Crossbow Lane. A lot of you guys know where that is. It's a very familiar home from some of the people up there. You know, some people know who used to own it. So one thing for sure, to be on kind of the neutral side, I'm definitely not for this project, but the one thing I only do like about this whole project is that from the planning board's meeting, I'm sorry. Again, I'm not for this project. I live pretty much on 1 Crossbow Lane, which is probably the worst corner of all the whole neighborhood. I said to the last council meeting that if you guys put a cop there, you could probably solve the deficit of West Warwick in 1 week with all the tickets. I'm very fortunate they're going to put a stop sign temporarily. The one thing I like right now of the whole project, and that's the only thing I like, is that number 16 from the planning board minutes, I don't know if you have it, Joe, says the developer's going to make my property a 90-degree turn into a 90. It's right now, it's kind of a 45-degree angle. If you regard it's where the yield sign is, you know whose house it was. It's sort of a 45-degree turn. It's going to become a 90-degree turn, so with a stop sign, meaning I'm going to gain some property, which is good in a way, but bad because I'm going to pay some taxes out. They're going to redo.
That's the first that I've heard of.
Oh, it's on, this is from the planning board meeting, and it says item number 16.
All the houses that are at that intersection, if Brian Tucker's house, isn't he on both sides?
He's across the street from me.
He's directly across the street from me.
Yes.
So he's on Crossbow, and the side of his house is on Nottingham?
Yes.
Right.
So he has a,
That's a developed corner.
he has a developed corner. My corner, when my area was built, I think it was 3 phases. The first phase was most of Nottingham, then Crossbow was like 85. My house was built in 85, and then back was in the 90s. The Nottingham 2 was not 1990 or 91 or something. And you've driven my area.
That
It's
sounds right, yep.
it's a 45-degree turn. They're going to put a stop sign up. But in essence, from what I gather is they're going to do all the work. I'm going to have to pay a penny for it, except I'm going to have to,
I don't know if they can do that.
We're going to do it. I mean, it's in there. We're
All
not
right, yeah.
changing it. We
All
promised
right.
to do it the last hearing. It's in the written decision.
I just want the zoning board to know that.
There's not one piece of testimony today would change that.
No, I just want to make sure,
That's
that's all.
okay, Joe.
Sorry, I just, only thing I ask is, depending on which way you guys vote, if this gets approved, that should be the first thing started because of all the traffic I'm going to endure for the next possible years to come.
That's planning board.
That's a planning
Okay,
issue.
so I have to go back to planning.
Yeah,
Because
that's
I was told by
that's a planning
planning, you
issue.
guys are the
We're
final
all gonna
decision.
stop- We're all stop along the way. That's
All right, I guess I'm back and forth. I thought I'd be done tonight in this place. Anyways, so enough with that. Just some, I guess,
Nice house. You have a nice house.
We'll be able to buy it in 5 years, hopefully. Carolyn's gonna have some business cards after tonight, I'm gonna have to put it on the market. Anyways, for the record, I would like to make a fact that, I gave it to planning also. You mentioned about all the streets in the traffic study. They only mentioned Nottingham Drive and Crossbow Lane, but believe it or not, there's about 6 or 7 or 8 different streets that people cut through to get there. I don't go out of Nottingham, you know, I don't think people are there. If they're gonna go to the Walmart or they're gonna go to 95, majority of them are even gonna cut through. I've even called the Coventry Town Planner and told him what was going on so he understands. Because they're gonna endure more traffic and more wear and tear in their roads. And what, so I let them know about this whole project. They didn't know about it when it happened.
The only good thing about the traffic, again, I don't want to be redundant, there's not going to be a lot of traffic.
All right, Peter, I hate to say this. You guys, that's when you kind of stepped into my next question. You mentioned these people 55 and over, they don't work. Well, I work in the employment side of it, all right? I help people get placed. I have more people who are 55 and over that are saying, are working. Some people can't afford, especially in Rhode Island, you can't afford to retire in Rhode Island until 70. These people buy these. Some of them, their kids might move out of the house, so they might downsize. They're going to be working, especially if they got nice jobs. My parents, 77 years old, my father worked until 75. He had a part-time job. So get me away from your mother every day, Raj. I got to get out of this house. All right? So these people, you think, some of these couples might be downsizing from their big colonials if they want to move to West Warwick. A big if they want to move here, all right, because of the taxes and everything, you know, when you get, you know, in Warwick. They're not going to these single-level condos. My friend's parents, they were going to buy in West Warwick, and they would do it. Guess where they went? North Kingston. They're one of those 55 and over. They're 64, and they're still working full-time. They own a business. So they got a nice condo. But anyways, what I'm saying is, it's a myth that people over 55 and over stay home all day. They don't stay home all day. They work. A majority of them will work. Now, second off, behind that, you're going to be putting a solar farm, which Mark Flory mentioned was approved at the planning board. So I don't know who's going to buy these things sitting behind a solar farm, because that'll probably go up right away, considering that's going to be was already set in stone. So I really don't know who's going to buy them. Personally, I wish the developer would approach the guy for the solar farm and sell the land and extend the solar farm all the way back, because all of us here wouldn't mind seeing a solar farm as opposed to, it would be a dead-end street still, which we want. You know, the main other issue is we're coming into a neighborhood. I bought in here.
Solar farms going into the part of the business.
Yes, but it's good. What I'm saying is if they could sell, they could expand.
It has to go out on, it's got to exit onto the J.P. Murphy Highway.
No, they could expand if they wanted to. If he bought his property, he could.
You can't, it's not zoned for that.
All right, well, maybe they come back to you guys and we probably.
We won't do it.
Well. All right, town council, okay, thanks.
That was a big concern. That area was the first consideration of the casino.
I know, I was at meetings with that. My parents, you know.
1998, and the whole fear of that was one of the fears. My house was there, my sister's house is on Lancer, of that exiting onto Greenbush Road. Can't do it, can't happen.
No, the other thing is, I bought in this house, I didn't know about it, I never saw this land for sale, believe me, if I did, I was always told, it was wetlands, you can never build like everybody else. I never saw it once for sale, believe me, always check in, I'm always looking at real estate. I mean, I'm looking to move probably NK, East Greenwich in the future, maybe, you know, Weston Cranston, maybe even out to East Bay where the back of my shirt says, I don't know, but either way, I never saw that property for sale, as you mentioned, why didn't we all buy it? Nobody ever saw it on the internet. So, I was told it was always wetlands, you couldn't build back there. I mean, I'm probably on one of the highest pieces of property. When he starts building back there and starts digging, all the water's probably gonna push half my neighbors out of the road. Well, I don't know.
The door has to remain open.
Sorry?
I think John just did. Peter.
Test. Sorry, guys.
Anything else, Roger? You're all set? Or-
No, a couple more things I want to mention. I also want to mention, I've seen the house plans. Personally, I wish the developer would relook it, maybe just put 11 houses up. You could put some nice, gorgeous colonials over there. And even if you mentioned school children, well, I don't think, a lot of people in this area, I've met a lot of families, I have a lot of friends who grew up there. I'm a Tollgate grad myself. Unfortunately, I didn't grow up in West Warwick, but I graduated Tollgate. But I have a lot of friends that I've made over the years, and a lot of the families over here, you have professionals who live in this area. You don't have a typical crowd of, you know, what majority of the town, you know, you have a lot of people who move to West Warwick because they get a lot of money for the bang, shall we say, okay? the $400,000 house you buy in East Greenwich, you come here for $250,000, shall we say. So a lot of people don't send their kids to the West Warwick school system once they hit middle school. They pay for the private school system. You know, if you put the high-end houses here, like St. Anne's Court, you might have run into that where you won't have as many children as you keep saying. Plus, if you put some ranch-style houses over here, you might get the older couples. A lot of 55 and overs don't want a condo. Some of them want a big ranch-style one level. So if you put those kind of houses, you might attract the 55 and over crowd. Maybe of 20 houses you'd attract, 10 would only have kids. That's what I'm just going to leave it at.
The thing is, if you find that developer, you go, maybe if they go to Triborough, give them a big note, maybe they'll take the profit and sell the property to them.
Oh, I'm just going to give you some facts I know. I mean, like I said, I might be asking Calvin for some card and put the house on the market depending on what happens tonight, because honestly, I don't know. This guy builds 2 at a time, so he might build 2 and the market might crash and nothing might be selling and I might be able to have a chance to escape and get out of here. So I'm just going to leave it at that.
Okay, thank you. Come on, John, come on up, John. I think
Please
the
state your
gentleman
name
on
and
deck
address.
might be the last person who gets to speak.
Please.
John D'Amico, 60, I moved. Dogwood Drive.
John, for the purpose of the record, you are here as a resident and not in your capacity as a town councilman, is that correct?
No.
Conflict.
Improper.
All right.
It's improper, only from the state, John, I want to tell you why it's improper. The town council appoints this board. That what makes it improper.
Hi. My name's David Hull. I live at 51 Lancer Lane.
David, what, please?
Hull, Hull.
Raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do. I live the absolute closest to this project of anybody here. I am right at the end of Lancer Lane. The road literally, their driveway abuts my property, literally right up to it. Mr. Anderson has approached me. He saw I came to the planning meeting and he heard my concerns. He came over and met with me and walked me through the whole thing, how it's gonna work. I was concerned with the road going by. I do not have that property for him to offer me as a buffer because the road is right there.
It's right there.
He has offered to landscape the land that's on his property and up my property to create a buffer to take up that void. I'm very appreciative of that because he has my feelings and his thoughts. The other thing he did convey to me is that he's gonna be building them, not all 12 buildings at a time. He's gonna build a few, sell them, build the next. So it's not like there's gonna be a big vacant area there of empty houses. I myself am a builder, 3rd-generation builder. It seems, the development seems very nice. I think the condos, I'm not a big condo fan, but for volume into that neighborhood, if it's gotta go out, condos are better than houses. It's gonna put less burden on the town, because then if it's houses, the town's gotta do all the paving, all the plowing, all the garbage, everything. So once that goes in that way, it's costing the town more money. And it's gonna put more burden on the schools, which are already, seem like they're getting pretty maxed out. Like I said, I'm not a big condo fan, but I think that's the best option. And you're doing minimal to that area of land. You're still leaving a lot of vacant land there for people to enjoy. And I have deer, turkeys in my yard, and I love that. And they're still gonna be going through there, And I kinda like that versus a whole paved area. So,
How long you been there?
10 years. Yeah. So, like I said, I moved there and there's like the dead end, on a dead end, and his project is there, and I am absolutely on the other corner where the solar farm's going. So I'm getting hit on both corners.
You're at the end of the road on the right-hand side.
Yes, I am. Yep. So, like I said, he went out of his way to approach me and to, feel my concerns. So I give him that. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you.
Motion to close public hearing?
Go ahead.
Second.
Motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Discussion.
I guess I'll go first.
I'll go second, after you, okay?
Looked at this
I don't generally
from
do
a lot
that.
of different views. Again, I have history in the area. I built a house on 20 Lancel Lane, which is 3 houses away from this last person. Very acutely aware of all of the projects that were planning on going in there, whether it was the casino or whether it was the water park, or condominiums, or single family, or large apartment complexes that seem to be way out of the picture. I'm in favor of this project. I feel that it meets all the criteria that the letter of law gives us for them to meet. I'll be voting yes.
I don't generally go second, I generally go third, fourth, or fifth, but I'm gonna go after Peter, because we have 5 bullet points to go by. Be compatible, create a nuisance, not hinder future development, conform to all applicable sections of the zoning ordinance, and is in conformance with the purpose of the intended comprehensive plan. The two that I have a problem with is, and I have a unique perspective, because I lived in the condominiums right on East Greenwich, on New London Turnpike. Now I live a mile down the street in a house. So I kind of have a unique perspective, because I lived in both of them. But as I drive down Lancel Lane, as I drive down Nottingham, I know the people in that neighborhood that went to school with my kids. I don't think it is good. What the project is proposed is not compatible with the land, with what is in the neighborhood right now. So I have a problem with number one. And number two, as Peter says, the town is 97% developed, okay? There's not much more development that can go on. Once something goes up in this town, it's there for 40, 50, 80 years. Could turn into a library that becomes vacant, okay? So on point number three, it will definitely hinder the future development of the town, because once something goes up, it's not coming back down again. So on this point, I have to say that I'll be voting no.
I'll go next. And it's ironic that I'm following Mike, because my consensus was exactly the same. So for the same reasons as said by Mike, not conforming with the neighborhood and hinder future development, I would also be voting no.
I think that it is compatible with the neighboring land. It's residential, and it's in a residential neighborhood. It's not the same type of residential, but it is residential. And as far as the other points, I'd be voting yes.
Amy, I didn't hear you. I didn't hear you.
I would be voting yes.
We've heard testimony from a lot of experts tonight, and then a lot of emotional opinion, really, from the neighbors, which is understandable. As I listened and took my notes and thought about this, I would agree that with Peter and Amy, I do believe that this would be compatible with the neighboring land uses. Again, these are basically single-family owner-occupied dwellings, which is kind of a definition of a house. You know, it's called a condo, but that's more of just a legal definition. You know, it seemed that the biggest concerns of the abutters was, you know, creating a nuisance in the neighborhood. And the basis for most of that opposition, as I understand it, was related to additional traffic. what we heard from their expert, that the impact to traffic in the neighborhood would be minimal. And what I would consider not enough that would rise to the level of a nuisance. As far as hindering the future development of the town, I mean, if you build something there, yeah, whatever you build there hinders the future development of the town. So, you know, whether it's a house, whether it's a condo, whether it's a water park, any of those different things, a casino, all those would have hindered the future development of the town. But I don't see that really holds up here. You know, it will conform to all applicable sections of the zoning ordinance. That's what we're here for. Between us and planning, that'll happen. And I believe it is in conformance with the purpose and intent of the comprehensive plan of the town of West Warwick. My only concern, and I don't know if this is the right time to ask, but we did get a lot of additional information tonight. My only request, I guess, would be to continue this, to allow us time to review that additional information, and you know, set a time next month to actually hold a vote on this.
That is within the prerogative of the board. The board does not have to decide tonight. It is frequently done where if or some boards want further time on their own, I'm just now giving you options. Frequently, boards will continue a matter for further discussion. Each member individually, without discussion with any other member, submits to me their opinion, that is what they're based on. I then submit a report back to the board, and the board at that time, based on my report, which would also take in all the testimonies brought in tonight, can make a decision. The board can continue for more information. The board, you know, to call additional witnesses. The board can continue solely for the purpose of each of you having the opportunity to go through what has been submitted, and next February, whatever the date is, meet. And what I would suggest, if you do that, that the board would continue it to date certain, time certain, for the sole purpose of rendering a decision, not for the taking of any further testimony. If the board, so those are your various alternatives, you know.
Okay.
If the board wants to discuss it, I can guide you through.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask the solicitor a question. Would it be proper for us to ask the applicant if they'd like to, I'm not sure the proper word, not table, but to be convened for that purpose that you just mentioned? Is that proper?
I'm not sure what you're asking the applicant to do.
If they're in favor of that, or would they like a vote?
That's a decision by the board.
No, that's us.
That's strictly you.
I'm asking, yes, I understand
Yeah.
that that's probably the case. Okay.
Yeah. That's not the applicant's desire. That's your desire.
I would like to propose that.
If I'm reading the board correctly, and I'm not sure, I would suggest that the motion be that the matter be continued to February, Paula? 26th. February 26th at 7 p.m. at the Town Hall for the sole purpose of the board rendering, its reasons and decision at that time. No further evidence to be taken, and giving me the liberty to kind of phrase the order on it.
Need to vote on that motion.
Yes, that motion has to be made and seconded for that purpose.
So I move the motion.
I'll second.
Discussion.
I think I would appreciate that time to look over.
What's that point?
I know I want to vote already.
I didn't catch it, Mike.
He doesn't need to discuss.
I don't need to discuss anything.
all right.
So it's being continued to.
No, I gotta have a vote.
No, you got to vote.
Okay.
And that should be a roll call vote.
Right.
Peter Kelsey,
Yes.
Amy Ortiz,
Yes.
Alan Hart,
Yes.
Michael McPhillips,
No.
and Richard Banks.
Nope.
That type of motion passes 3-2. That doesn't need the 4-vote majority.
Are we all done? Make a motion to adjourn?
Second?
All in favor? Aye.
We have to submit findings down, is that what you said?